Hi, I'm CP, you're on Bespoke Unit, and in this video I'm going to be reviewing a Scotch blend that you've all heard about. It's the Famous Grouse. So some of you are probably wondering, why is Bespoke Unit reviewing a blended Scotch whisky like the Famous Grouse? Well, the reason is we try and review a wide variety of spirits for different budgets, different occasions and different uses. And on this occasion, this was actually Paul's idea. Paul, as you know, is the founder of Bespoke Unit, or if you don't, you'll probably see him around in a lot of the other videos, such as our Davidoff documentary. And I thought, well, I never really grew up with the Famous Grouse. It wasn't one of those Scotch whiskies that were in my parents' bar, so it's not one I kind of stole on a night out, and I don't have any distinct memory of trying it. So I grabbed a bottle at the supermarket, and I was a little bit worried. I was thinking, what have I let myself in for? And you'll see in this review that I'm pleasantly surprised. We used the Bespoke Unit Whiskey Matrix for this review, like we do with every single review. Normally it's catering to single malts, but it can be used for blends as well in this occasion, but also we did Johnny Walker Black Label. So this blend here is produced in ex-bourbon and an American oak casks. Because it's a blend, I don't have much information on how long, the different ages, nor the background or the regions of the various whiskies that we use to craft this blend. So let's take a look first at the Robe. Well, here we have a nice sort of Sauternes, dark, aged white wine Robe. It's not too dark, it's not too intimidating, it's quite clear. The legs here are very thin. Well, they're not that thin, they could be thinner, and they're quite fast as well. They're trickling down the side of the glass. In terms of visometric whirls, so adding a drop of water into it, I noticed that I did get some whirls. I'm not going to do it now because you'll obviously not see it in the camera, and on top of that, I don't think it needs it, as I'll say later. But I found that it did create whirls, which suggests that it has visometric potential and isn't chilled filtered, which I found quite surprising. Straight on from there, we'll jump into the nose. So I'm here looking at my notes of what I wrote when I tried it earlier. I find in terms of intensity, it's not overbearing, it's not too mild either, it's kind of middle of the road. I wouldn't call it flat either. There is some intricacy in there as well. In terms of the diversity of notes, there is a nice selection. I'll talk about those just at the end, which are quite, I wouldn't say they're vivid, I wouldn't say they're out there. They're not vague. It's kind of, again, very middle of the road. I wouldn't call it average in any way, but in terms of nose feel, it's quite peppery. So what I was getting in terms of aromas was mostly what dominated it, and it will in the palate as well, as I'll talk about later, is speculoos biscuits. You know, those cinnamon biscuits you often get with coffee, commonly from the Lotus brand. I really got a lot of that in here, and a little bit of tartness from apple, red apple, so it's kind of sweet as well. A touch of brine, so a little bit of a sea breeze flavour in there, and there was a little fruitiness, a little bit of caramelized citrusness, which came from oranges, I would say. I call it oranges. So let's bottoms up, I suppose. So when I first did that, I was very reluctant to, there's an apprehension. I was thinking, what is it going to be like? And it's surprisingly very pleasant. It's quite inoffensive. It's very gentle on the palate. It's not overbearing at all. There's no harshness, which I found most surprising. The primary flavours are very sweet, and the mouthfeel is a little bit prickly, a little bit peppery as well. In the opening, we have digestive biscuit. So I'm having another one. So we're having digestive biscuit, which relates back to the speculoos, which I referred to earlier, and continues into the heart of the flavour profile. But in the opening, alongside the digestive biscuit, we get some brine and a little bit of salted caramel, a little bit of, so again the brine and a little bit of sweetness, quite syrupy as well. Once we're into the heart, so this is when it's starting to swirl around the palate, you're getting some of that speculous biscuit again. So the digestive biscuit becomes a little bit more caramelized, a little bit spicier. You have some cinnamon in there. And I had some stewed tea. So let's say a Ceylon or a oolong tea that had been brewed for a little bit longer, a little bit of that kind of thick tarriness. But again, it was quite fragrant, it was quite gentle, with what I would describe as pear drops. Pear drops being, it has this kind of solvent fruitiness to it, and it's quite distinctive there. Once we're into the finish, if you don't mind, I'm just going to have another one. So the finish, the reason I had another one is that the linger of the finish, I found it to be a little bit short, which doesn't really surprise me, but it is still quite short, so you'll be reaching for more. That could be a good thing. In terms of the flavour, again, I referred to flat earlier. I think flat would be a harsh term, but it isn't bursting with flavour either. In the notes of the finish, I got a little bit of butterscotch, so kind of a boozy creaminess, bit of custard, sherry. There was a distinctive little sherry flavour in there, and Sauternes. So there's this kind of, again, boozy, alcoholic, but fruity note nevertheless. As for the overall experience, so this is something we review with every whiskey that we try. Normally with a Scotch whisky it comes in packaging, so we would review that. I've given it 1 point even though there's no packaging because I don't want to penalise it so much, taking into account its price point and this being a cheap blended Scotch. It was €15. The label, I mean, it's a classic label. I really like it. You have this distinctive, very proud grouse there, and was often seen in all the advertisements. I actually have a little egg cup with a grouse on it that my wife gave me when she visited Edinburgh. I use that every morning when I have soft-boiled eggs, so I do have a soft spot for grouse. In terms of packaging, like I said, there's nothing there. In the cork quality, I mean, it's a screw top because it's a blend, so don't expect anything of high quality there. As for the occasion, now this is a consideration that we always have in our reviews, is the versatility. If you can take it to a lavish occasion, if you can drink it casually, this is something that we feel is quite important with a drink, especially when you take into account the value for money, which is the next point. The occasion, it's not a drink that you're going to take out in a special occasion, is it? It's going to be something that you drink with friends, you drink at home, you use for cocktails, you're going to have it casually, it's going to be something in your cupboard to make... Whiskey American was one of my father's favourite, which is a little bit of Canada Dry and a little bit of whiskey. This would be perfect for that, especially that it's quite sweet as well. It would carry on it would extend those flavours without there being too much contrast. In terms of value, I thought it was very good. For me in France, it was €15 at the supermarket. I imagine it's something relatively similar in the USA, but you can check in the description below. We have a couple of links to a couple of online retailers where you can compare prices. Finally, we're going to talk about pairings. This is something that we always consider with a Scotch whisky, is how it can be enjoyed and what you can enjoy it with. On this occasion, in terms of dishes, dishes is a complicated one with whiskey, but you can certainly have a meal with Scotch whisky. It's quite pleasant. In this case, I suggested mince pies. I know that at the time of recording this, we are at the end of April, so mince pies are a little bit thin on the ground and thin in the air and thin in the shopping aisles, but it would be a good one during the festive season. Dark chocolate would be a nice option as well, and otherwise smoked trout. Rather than smoked salmon, which is much richer and bolder in flavour and elevated in price, it's much more premium, smoked trout is a little bit gentler, quite affordable, and would be a good pairing option for this. Cigars is another consideration that we always keep in mind with whiskey because we love cigars at Bespoke Unit. For cigars, I would believe that a medium-bodied cigar with potentially a Habano wrapper, like the San Cristobal Quintessence, would be a great option to pair with this. So wrapping this up using the whiskey matrix that I told you about earlier. Oh, by the way, there's a PDF in the description below so you can see the full version, because if I just keep showing you like this, you're not going to see a thing. I'll try and get something to slide in at some point during the video, but again, it might be hard to read, so please click on that PDF in the description and you'll be able to see the full overview of this whiskey. Anyway, this scored 61 out of 100, which sounds terrible. 61 out of 100, if you read about that in a publication, it means they hated it. But we use a full 100-point scale system. That's the difference. And for us, 61% equates to a very low, but a 4-star rating. It's a low 4-star rating, but it is still a 4-star rating. And I think that's fair. And given the experience and given that everything I've told you, I think it reflects the quality of this whiskey well, taking into consideration that it is a blend and that it is a whiskey at a certain price point. Overall, the Famous Grouse is a very inoffensive blended Scotch whisky that you can drink very easily, neat, with a bit of water if you want to, but I don't think it is very necessary, or you can even enjoy in a cocktail and not be judged for doing so. So that concludes today's video. I hope you've enjoyed it. My name's CP, and if you're looking for any more information about alcoholic spirits, cigars, men's lifestyle in general, head to Bespoke Unit or have a browse around our channel. I'll see you next time. Take care.